Welcome to Rehash, a Web3 podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Rehash, a Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Diana Chen, and today we're speaking with Taylor Monahan from MetaMask about wallet security, how to avoid scams, and future wallet UX improvements that she'd like to see. Taylor previously founded my Ether wallet and MyCrypto, which was acquired by MetaMask earlier this year. But before we dive into our conversation with Taylor, here's a quick word from the Web3 projects who helped make the season possible.
Web2 Social has become a world of walled gardens, where platforms own your data, your content, and your community.
But Lens Protocol is a community garden, a user-owned, composable, and decentralized ecosystem designed to let Web3 social apps bloom.
When you create content on Lens, you own it, you control it, you take it with you from app to app, and you decide how it's monetized.
Instead of chasing ads and algorithms, you set the value of your work, and your community collects it directly from you. Here at Rehash, we'll be experimenting with this ourselves by posting all content from Season 3 on Lens, where our community can now truly interact and grow with us.
So bring your photos and videos, your GMs, and your friends, and come join the new era of social media on Lens Protocol.
Go to claim.lens.xyz to claim the last social media handle you'll ever need. And be sure to follow rehash.lens.
Contributing to a DAO can feel like this. Contributing to several DAOs can feel like this. But it doesn't have to. With Avenue, you can filter out the noise, get to know more DAOs, and start contributing right away. Avenue allows contributors to form organic teams to work together on the things they love. This means DAOs can operate, coordinate, and collaborate at a scale that used to be impossible. Because working together in a DAO should be like making music. The drummers drum, the singers sing, and when collaboration leads the way, a song emerges. No more relying on the core team to get things done. It's time to get your community contributing. To give your DAO the information they need to know, the tools they need to self-organize, and the spaces they need to work together, visit avenue.place.
Hey guys, thanks for hopping on here. I just wanted to touch base real quick.
What's up, Diane?
What's up? So first of all, I just wanted to say thanks, Tyler, for taking these meeting notes. They look great.
I didn't take those. I'll take credit for it, though.
Wait, that wasn't you? Do we know who it was? And who's been posting those hilarious meme videos on our Twitter?
Oh, I have no idea. There's a lot going on here, though. Like, how are we supposed to keep up with what everyone's doing?
I don't know. It feels like pure chaos being in a DAO sometimes. Ellie, what was that thing you were talking about that helps DAO contributors add and organize all of their contributions?
Oh yeah, it's called Govern. It's like GitHub for DAO contributors.
Ooh, that sounds cool. How does it actually work?
Yeah, so it's actually a protocol where DAO members can add any task they've completed as a contribution. And then their fellow DAO members can attest to them to confirm that those contributions were valid without the need for a core team to do so. What you end up with is a simple bottom-up way for members to build out the DAO's contribution graph themselves. It gives contributors more power and freedom, it makes it a lot easier to accurately reward everyone. DAO members actually own all of their contributions, so if they want to jump into another DAO, they can actually prove they know their stuff.
Okay, I'm sold. Can it be on chain?
Of course, but on Gnosis chain, so transactions are super cheap.
Ooh. All right, yeah, I'm down. Diane?
Yeah, for sure. Let's set it up. What's the link, Ellie?
Just go to govern.app, and that's govern without the E, so GOVRN.app.
Perfect. All right, well, if you guys got this, I gotta jump back to another call. Hey, Taylor, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How does it feel to be voted onto the podcast for the first time? I know you've been on a million podcasts, but I don't believe you've ever been voted on by a group of people, have you?
I don't think I have been voted on. It was actually super cool because I started getting tagged and stuff. And then that's when I actually went and checked it out. And Twitter spam is kind of outrageous these days. And so I was very happily surprised that this was not Twitter spam. There was actual stuff happening. So I was super stoked. And it looks like you've created a little pod of happiness. All the people that were talking, all the conversations I saw were so great.
I love how you describe that little pot of happiness. That's really how I see it. So I'm glad that pot of happiness is shining through to the rest of the community. So for anybody who doesn't know you, which is few and far between, you've been in the space for ages. You were one of the first developers or the first creators of a project in the Ethereum ecosystem. But could you just take us back to when you first learned about crypto in the first place, all the way through all the cool things you worked on? Like, what was it about Ethereum specifically that drew you in and, sort of like stood out from all the Bitcoin craze that was happening at the time, and just how your time in the space has been over the last decade or so?
Yeah, absolutely. So, gosh, way back when. It's been so many years now. It's crazy. Time flies in this space. But so way back when, it was like right before Mount Gox happened, which was like the biggest event. And I feel like most newcomers don't sort of understand the scale. It was sort of like a Terra Luna and like the entire contagion, but like with the main exchange, like the thing that everyone was doing. I think it was like at some point, like 80% of all like Bitcoin transactions was like happening on Gox. So to have that just sort of like collapse and this news seep out bit by bit, and like, I don't know, they lost the Bitcoin, then they like found some Bitcoin. It was just like this tale that never wanted to end. And that really drove us like into this, my first bear market. And it was during this sort of bear market period in this like post Mt. Gox, like, oh, maybe Bitcoin was just a fad and it's over now. It was in that period where like Ethereum started becoming talked about, like Vitalik got on stage in Miami and did this whole pitch. There was like the pre-sale, which was like basically what people today call like an ICO, but it was a pre-sale back then. And it was like, I was sort of half in the community, half out of the community. Like I was interested in it. It was cool. The technology was cool, but I certainly was not like engaging or like, deep in it. And so basically took some of the Bitcoin that I had acquired and put it into the Ethereum presale. But you couldn't do anything at that point because it was presale, like a true presale. You had to wait like a full year before you could actually do anything. So fast forward a year, the guy who later became my co-founder, we had worked together like physically in the same crappy little office. But a year later, like I was no longer there. And so we're like messaging each other and he's telling me about, oh, you can do this and you can do that. And I was like, yeah, this sounds like a terrible idea. And the whole reason I've been building wallets for like 7 years straight now is because I didn't want to send my like Ether over like command line with the command line. I wanted to like, I don't know, have buttons and like safety and someone checking my stuff. And so we ended up building a really simple tool that just allowed you to create a new wallet and then like send from one wallet to the next. And it just exploded from there. Like Reddit, like loved it. Everyone was having the same problems. Fast forward like just under another year and the DAO happened. Got super involved with that community and it was that's when I think I like really like kind of dove in head first because that community was really special. Got to know people, went to DevCon, like, I don't know, it just like transformed from there. And I've basically just been like iterating on the wallet and like trying to keep people safe, trying to make the ecosystem safer and better and do whatever I can to help improve stuff. But yeah, this was not my life plan, but it is now.
How accessible was interacting on the blockchain back in the day when you still had to type command lines and stuff? Because I don't think you're like traditionally a dev, right? Like that isn't your background. What was that learning process like?
So I had been doing, at that point, I'd been doing like some front end dev work, meaning like WordPress sites for like restaurants and small businesses and like some HTML and like CSS. But that was like a far cry from like the actual coders and the actual like big brains in the room. For me, I just lacked the confidence. Like the only thing I did via command line at that point was like, at that time the build system was grunt, and so I would just like open command line and type grunt, and like that would like do whatever the stuff that I wanted it to do was. But yeah, like when you talk about like money, like when you talk about like syncing the node, like this stuff is so foreign. And at that time it was basically like about as foreign as it is today for a newcomer, except in this like black box. And like it doesn't really give you error messages, it doesn't really help you out. It just like if you screw something up, it just happens anyways. It was absolutely terrifying. And I would say that like the very first versions of my Ether wallet, they were not like easy or accessible from a user experience perspective, but they were like, I don't know, it was like night and day over the alternative. And back then there wasn't really anything to do. I just say that, but like really there wasn't anything to do. All you could do was like send your ether from like your own wallet to like a new wallet of yours. Like maybe if you had a friend, you'd send it to a friend, but that was like basically it. It wasn't until the DAO and then really I would say like even the last couple of years where it's like you're actually doing some fascinating stuff with your ether.
Yeah, for sure. So I think most of our listeners know what a crypto wallet is, so we won't quite start that far back. But I think something that a lot of people don't know, even people who've been in the space for a little bit, is how wallets actually work on the back end. Like what makes a certain wallet an Ethereum wallet and another wallet a Solana wallet. And like what do wallets have to do to allow you to hold different kinds of tokens? So could you explain like how the back end works so people actually understand like what wallets really are and like why they can do certain things and can't do other things?
Yeah, so it's super interesting because your crypto assets, like they're not actually in your wallet. Your wallet is more just like this like surface layer thing that helps you construct the transactions or helps display information or whatever it is. But like your actual like coins are on the blockchain. They're in the digital ledger. And where it gets more complicated is with Ethereum. Like Bitcoin is just that. You have your Bitcoin and like there's the blockchain, there's the ledger, you can go see it, and like it's just transactions. With Ethereum though, you have those types of transactions, which are like when you're sending ETH around, but then you also have like tokens or NFTs or like now you have your various DeFi positions. And those are actually not, how do I say this? It's an asset. Like when you have a token, that is an asset, but it's not sort of like an asset in the sense that like the ledger just inherently knows what that is. You actually, when you deploy a token contract, you're actually like defining the rules of your token. And luckily we have standards. So most tokens are the same. So you have like the ERC20 is a standard. It's saying this is how tokens look. So we can see all the tokens. But like what the wallet is actually doing is like interacting with the token contract and like manipulating the balances if you can prove who you are, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's the reason why, not every wallet works with every blockchain. Is like you need the backend infrastructure to be able to talk to the blockchain. You need to be able to like transform whatever that data is into something that a human might actually want to like look at and understand. It's like the edge cases will get you. So like gas, like transaction fees, you have the gas price and the gas limit in Ethereum, which is, unique to say the least. And then you also sort of have like different ways of accessing like the state. Like, is it processing? Did it get mined? Did it get mined and then fail there? What does that mean? What can you tell the user to do? So I guess like the best way to sort of emphasize why most wallets tend to stick to like an ecosystem is you don't want to have someone building a wallet if they don't actually know that ecosystem. Like you just don't. Like it's sending money and you're teaching other people how to send money around. And so for that reason, like, we tend to stick with the EVM Ethereum ecosystem, which is all sort of the same at the base layer. And then we're hoping to extend MetaMask to like have other people support Bitcoin or Solana or whatever the future holds. And I think that's the best of both worlds in my opinion.
Got it. So it's not so much a technical limitation that wallets have to be blockchain specific. It's more of like you should build in the ecosystem that you know best sort of thing.
Yeah. And it does take more code and like, the more code you have, the more maintenance it takes, the more refactoring you have to do and all those things. But you can definitely make a wallet that does everything. You just will probably be maintaining a lot of code and not necessarily diving deeper into the features of that specific ecosystem.
Okay, makes sense. So then when we talk about setting up our wallet and, in a safe way, make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success in the long term, what is your take on the best practices for wallet security? Is it to have, 10 ledgers or Trezors, like hardware wallets that I hide all over my house? Or is it to have, a bunch of like multi-sigs, like Gnosis multi-sigs that I share with other people in case something happens to my stuff, everybody else is safe? Or what do you typically recommend for wallet security best practices?
Yeah, so I used to say, like, without a doubt, like, get yourself a ledger or a Trezor or a hardware wallet and use that. I still say that, like, those are still excellent choices. But I think that as the sort of complexity of the stuff that you're doing in the ecosystem evolves, I think that the best piece of advice that I now have is to like put your eggs in different baskets. So if you want to have like multiple ledgers, I think I have like 4 active ledgers right now, but that's mostly because some of them are old and some of them are for the company and stuff. But I think the most important thing is like, you know, if you're going to be sort of like trading NFTs back and forth all day, every day, you know, have a wallet where you do that kind of stuff and put the stuff that you're not trading, put the stuff that you're not touching, put that somewhere else. And like, there's a lot of different ways to make save accounts. Like you can do paper wallets still. I prefer to use hardware wallets for day-to-day activity because it's like a good mix of, you know, you can actually access it, but it's still really, really safe. Even if your computer's compromised, like you're still going to be safe. But I think the other thing is like the more sophisticated the attackers get, the harder it is to have like a one size fits all solution. And so by simply having your stuff in different accounts, even if you get completely owned, you won't be completely owned, right? So like you'll have just a small portion of your stuff stolen. But yeah, definitely hardware wallets. If you want to experiment with multi-sigs, like they're super cool. There's a lot of innovation happening. I think for like the average user though, I think that, I don't know, I guess I say if you're in crypto and you have more than like, I don't know, $1,000 and plan to stay in crypto, just get a hardware wallet or 2. Just do it. Just set it up, move your funds over. Yeah, spread out your stuff and go from there.
And then as far as, so like something I've been paranoid about in the past is like, for instance, like I might have multiple different MetaMask wallets. Like I might make an account for one thing and then another account for something else. Is there any way for hackers to like link these accounts together? So if I'm moving funds between different accounts that I have with MetaMask and one of my wallets gets compromised, does that also give hackers like access to transactions I've made between that wallet and other wallets?
So not really, but so where it gets confusing is that back in the day in Bitcoin land, you actually would change your address like every single time you sent. Like you would never use the same address for more than a transaction. And because of that, they came up with what we call like the secret recovery phrase, is those 12 or those 24 words. That piece of information actually has like a whole infinite amount of addresses under it, but it's all protected by that same 12-word phrase. So if that 12-word phrase gets compromised, like if you were to like type it in on a phishing site, or like there's an attack called the evil maid attack where like your maid steals it, if they have that piece of information, the 12 words, then any of the accounts that are sort of like underneath those 12 words, they can like gain access to and steal all of those assets. Like a really common one is like the NFT ones where it's like a fake minting site and they get you to approve sending all your NFTs around. Like that's just going to be your NFTs in that one account. There's no way for them to like hop over, do other things. So it really depends. I would say those 12 words are really, really, really secret. Don't ever share them. Don't like copy them. Just like write them down at first and then try never to look at them again. That's your best bet with that, or have multiple phrases, obviously.
Okay, and I definitely should know this, but I haven't actually looked in a while. With MetaMask, when you create a new account, does that create a whole new wallet with like a whole new recovery phrase? Or do you have one recovery phrase for all of the different accounts you have on MetaMask?
Yeah, so if you're in MetaMask, you already have your account in MetaMask and you do the like add new account or create new account or whatever, that little button, that's like creating the second address or the third address or the fourth address under that secret recovery phrase, under those 12 words. However, if you like go on your phone and create a new MetaMask, that's like a whole new set of words and it'll tell you like, you can't really escape the 12 words. Like when you create new ones, like MetaMask really yells at you to make sure you write them down. And then the other thing you can do is you can import in various ways. Like if you have a hardware wallet, obviously that's one way, but you can also import like the separate accounts from external locations into a single MetaMask. So just because you have like multiple accounts in your MetaMask doesn't mean they're all necessarily linked if you've done like a lot of importing. But if you've just sort of created your MetaMask and then added accounts from there, it's most likely that they're all under the same 12-word phrase.
Okay, gotcha. So does it actually help from a security perspective to create new accounts with MetaMask, or is it more just for like personal organizational purposes?
Yeah, so there's definitely like privacy benefits because if you don't send back and forth between them all the time, like they're separate accounts, and they do protect against a lot of the attack vectors where it's like the fake NFT mint, the fake approval, the fake this. But if it's again those like the phishing websites that ask you for your 12 words and then you go copy and paste those 12 words into that phishing website, it's not going to protect against that specific one. Yeah, but there's a lot of attacks.
Yeah, and
Flip a coin.
speaking of those attacks, I've been seeing a lot more sophisticated attacks, right? So you can say,
Yeah.
general rule of thumb, do not ever copy and paste your secret phrase anywhere. Like that's a safe bet. And you can say like different rules, but there have been some scams lately where that have gotten like veterans in the space. People who've been in the
Yeah.
space for like a decade have fallen for these. And these are super sophisticated attacks. I'm sure you've seen them as well. Like, are you able to sort of generalize and put them into a few containers that people can look out for? Or is it really like people are getting so creative that there's almost like no way to avoid it unless you're just like, 110% paranoid all the time?
Yeah, so there's definitely buckets, and I think that so if you sort of like step back and like look at this crypto ecosystem and all these like scammers and hackers and bad guys like running around, it's super crazy. And the reason that it's so crazy is that, like historically, like these same sorts of people are going to be doing the same things, but they're going to be doing it via like traditional systems. So they're going to be like mailing cash or like trying to like convince your grandma to like answer the phone about the tech support guy or like like all these things, right? Crypto is just like it's just a lot easier for them to just like brute force like attack it. And that's why like on Twitter you see like the fake support agents just like nonstop. You're like, who would fall for that? Well, if they exist, I guarantee someone's falling for it because like otherwise the attackers like they'll change their methods. The reason that I think we're seeing them get like more and more sophisticated is that one, with the crypto price when it goes up, like more scammers like enter the space. But the other reason I think is that like we have done a good job at like educating to a certain extent so that the second that people are actually able to like not fall for a certain scam, that's when we see the scams evolve. And so like we did a lot of work in MetaMask specifically around like the secret recovery phrase and like what happens when you show it. And it used to be like that was like the main thing. Then we like didn't show it, we would show a QR code. Then the scammers were like getting on like video calls with people and getting them to like show their secret recovery phrase via the QR code. We removed that feature, like we like hot removed it, and then that stopped, and then like we saw like the approval scam show up. It's absolutely insane. The thing that I would tell people is this, like anytime sort of like your MetaMask is open or like the secrets are like out and about in a way that you can see them, no matter like if it's in person, if it's on your computer, if you're showing it, whatever. Anytime that is happening, like your risk of losing your money is going up. And so you just need to like gut check and double check and triple check and like force yourself to pause all the time because a lot of the times they will take advantage of like human evolution psychology stuff. So like they'll scare you. They'll be like, "Oh, you have to move your money right now. The merge broke everything. Go, go, go." And they try to like overcome the red flags, right? They'll capitalize on news. They'll capitalize on like your fear. They'll capitalize on your FOMO, right? Like, send me 1 Bitcoin right now and I'll send you 1,000 back. And people are like, yeah, let me in. These are just like innate like ways that our brain just like short circuits. And anytime that like you're actually scared, that's probably like a sign that like you shouldn't actually be scared. Like what you should be is like pausing and like double checking everything. Yeah, and this is another reason why as like the diversity of the scams and the hacks get like crazier is why I say like just separate your stuff into multiple piles because yeah, we have seen veterans get wrecked. Like I've gotten pretty close and like I watch these all day every day and like I've ended up on a site where I'm like, wait, this isn't real. It's it just takes a like a moment, like the tiniest second of either not thinking, of either like being scared, of getting greedy, whatever it is, that tiny second and like you make that one mistake and then it's gone. There's nothing you can do. And that's what sucks.
Can you share what happened to you specifically?
It was like honestly super stupid, but in sort of like as the NFT mania was like increasing, right? Like, and it was getting more and more manic. I was so out of touch. Like, I was building and like doing all this stuff, but I just had not been like around enough to like get into NFTs, and I felt like I was missing out. And so I was watching my team like get in and like do these crazy things, and like I didn't really understand it, and they were talking about the floor price, and I was like so out of touch. I was just like really, really, really out of touch. And so I was sort of like half aware of what they were doing and half aware of like the language being used. And then I was somewhere else in a different chat that was like a semi-trustworthy chat, like not a, like not my team, but still like not, generally people I knew. And someone like linked to something and I clicked it and I was like, oh, hey, this is one of those minting things that my team is so excited about. Like, maybe I can get it and I can show my team that I'm like, that I'm super cool. Like, I'm one of the cool kids again. But luckily, like, I'm a pretty busy person. And luckily I like typically have a daughter who's a toddler, so she'll steal it. I always keep like the ledgers and the USBs are always like in a safe because otherwise she'll take it. And so by the time I got the ledger out and like actually was like gonna go mint this thing, I think MetaMask had blocked it or something. Like something had happened where I realized that it was like a fake site just because it had taken like multiple hours for me to like actually get my shit together. But if I had been able to just like mint from MetaMask right then, I probably would have done so because I was so excited to be a cool kid.
Yeah, that honestly happens all the time. A similar thing happened to my sister, but like actually happened to her before any like MetaMask could block it or anything. It was actually a friend of mine that she follows on Twitter too, who's kind of like an NFT guru. And he had posted about, I think, Azuki, like the NFT project Azuki, but tagged, like misspelled it by one letter, totally by accident. Like he obviously wasn't doing it on purpose. And my sister clicked on it and like followed the link, and she's a crypto newbie and just clicked like sign,
Yeah, click,
like
click,
didn't
click,
read
click,
it or
click.
anything. Click, 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 and ended up getting all her NFTs, like including her ENS and everything stolen. So yeah, unfortunately that happens all the time. And so when you say, make sure you check and double check and triple check, what does that actually entail? So like, for example, like in my sister's case, before she went and clicked sign, what should she have been looking for? Because sometimes like the signature stuff just looks like gibberish.
Oh, it's like a blob. It's a blob.
So how does one even go about like checking or double checking whether that's legit or not?
So you're 100% right. Like sometimes the signature is a blob. Even if the signature isn't a blob, it's not necessarily like for a noob, it's not necessarily going to be like explicit or like ring any bells. You're not going to know what like the right state is. So how can you tell that it's like the wrong state? So some of the like red flags that are sort of more generic or like things to double check is like, what are you trying to do right now? So like, for example, in my case, right, like I was trying to like be a cool kid and mint this NFT, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I think a lot of times, like if you look at the NFT related ones, like it's like, Bored Apes, like they're doing a new drop or something, like there's something where it gets your excitement level like very, very high because you're going to be rich or whatever. And so any of like, that's just like a thing. Like if you think that like you're about to get massively rich, stop. Like, I'm sorry, just stop. Because it's probably a scam. I'm so sorry. Another one is like check like where, like trace back like how you ended up in the place that you did. If I had like really thought about it, I would have been like, okay, so I'm on this site now and it wants me to like do this thing, but how did I get here? And I would have been like, oh, this like Telegram chat with like 1,000 people in it that's like semi-trustworthy. Okay, that's not that trustworthy. Like I don't know this person. Like I can't go beat them up if I get all my money stolen, right? And you're 100% right. Like it could be a mistake, it could be a typo, it could be all those things. And at that point, I probably would have like circled back a different way. So let's say there is like a Bored Ape drop. You arrive there, you're like, okay, wait, pause. I don't know if I trust this source. Go find the source like from a different location. So if you found it on Telegram, go like search on Twitter, go find some like reputable things on Twitter, go find their website like on your own via Google. If you found it via Google though, like go check on Discord or go check on Twitter, go ask your friend. There's like, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways that people can manipulate. Like they can manipulate the signature. It can be like a single typo in the URL. It could be a fake Twitter account, right? So no matter what it is though, like just go check a different place. And then the other thing that you can check is like if you do search like whatever, like Bored Ape Drop or whatever on Twitter, a lot of times you'll be able to see like piles of scammers, and you'll be able to see like the sort of the scam hunters, right? Like there's a whole group of them that you probably don't necessarily know exist, but there's like a whole group of people that are constantly monitoring these scams and like adding them to the block list and like tracking them. Those will show up as well, unless you're like the first person to get hit with a scam. So those are some of my pro tips. It's getting hard though. It's getting really, really hard.
It really is. I actually didn't know that last tip about the scam hunters and the block lists and stuff like that. So that is helpful to know. But yeah, I'm super like just paranoid all the time and anal about like double and triple checking everything, social verification, so verifying it across social channels and making like doubly sure that every link is legit, because the scams, I mean, it really puts you in like a just scared mindset.
Yeah, it's insane. And like they evolve so quickly. Like these are not just like normal phishing sites anymore. Like they are just so, yeah, they're hacking accounts. They're hacking the Discord bots to drop the link. Like, you know what I mean? It's like anything that you sort of thought was like a way to like tell if something was trustworthy or not, it's gone. You can't trust it. So all you can do is like check multiple different sources. And, my hope is that over the next couple of years, we'll get a lot better at sort of like distributing the information and warning about stuff, both on the positive side, so having like verified information, but also, yeah, just like way faster on the uptake for the whatever the scams are.
So stay safe out there, people. Remember to
Please.
double check, triple check, do a gut check, do anything you can. Be paranoid, because it's going to save you a lot of money down the line, and be safe. I want to talk a little bit more about like the wallet ecosystem at large. So when you first started MyEther wallet back in 2015, it was the first wallet on Ethereum, or wallet interface. I don't even know if, like people conceptualized it that way at that time. And one of the first like projects on Ethereum in general, wallet or not. When you first started that, what was, I guess, your main focus or main goal? Like, what did you think was the most important thing for wallets back then? And over the last 7 years, as that has evolved into MyCrypto and now MetaMask, like how have your views about what's most important with wallets changed?
Yeah, it used to be so simple. So I think that, oh God, it's hard because like the more time that passes and the more experience I have, the more time I watch like how various people lose their money, right? Because like it can be, there's also, we haven't even touched on it, but like if you just don't ever save your 12 word phrase, your secret recovery phrase, like that'll also lose your money. And like back in 2016, 2017, that was actually like the number one cause of loss, was that people just weren't writing it down. They weren't saving it anywhere. They were just like blasting right through the onboarding flow and just going and sending like their ether to like this new address and never having the private key. And I think that like it's tough because the ecosystem has gotten more complex, and like we've been able to like solve sort of at the surface layer, like we've been able to like make changes so that we see less loss, right? But fundamentally, if you lose that phrase, if you give it away to someone, if someone steals it, if someone hacks your computer, like you're toast, right? And I think that that's a really difficult thing for like me to wrap my head around, is like it's been so many years. You'd think we would be better at this by now. Like you'd think we would have like actually made some like really tangible improvements, and like don't get me wrong, like we have like the reason the scams are evolving is because we're successfully doing stuff. But at the same time, it's kind of mind-boggling that like everything sort of ties back to this single string of characters, and these like characters that like you can't change. You can't like, I don't know. I remember like thinking it was an education problem early on. I was like, oh, we just need to tell people that they can't change like their password or their key. They need to save it and they can't show it, and then they can't change it either. Now, I don't know. I've changed my tune a little bit. Like, I think it is an education problem to a certain extent, but I also think that like there's things that we can do at like the protocol layer. There's things that other chains have done. There's things that we can do to like sort of fundamentally change like how you think about your account, right? And like one of them would be to be able to change it, right? Like to be able to have like say that secret over there, like don't use that anymore, use this one. And so that's like a really interesting design space. There's obviously like the smart contract wallets. There's the MPC stuff is like getting to a point where we might actually be able to put it in users' hands. But I think like that at its core, like that's going to be the thing that like levels up. The other thing that's changed a lot is like, you know, with my Ether wallet, like you basically just sent stuff. Like you sent Ether. That was essentially it. You would get tokens in ICOs, but even once you had tokens, like you just had the tokens and then you would send the tokens and that was it. Like it's just sending. With MetaMask, it's completely different. Like you have our users are interacting with like any website that happens to be integrated with MetaMask, and like what does that mean and what does it do and what are they trying to do and what does it actually do? We don't really have any idea. Like it's super strange to be building a product where I don't actually know what the user like wants to do, right? Like we only know the very like top use cases. Like, all right, the users want to get their NFTs. Got it. I can do this, right? But like everyone else, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things that have nothing to do with NFTs. Yeah, we're like trying to make design decisions. We're trying to make the space safer without knowing what those things are. And that's a crazy thing to wrap your head around. And then I think that like the unknownness of it, like and not being able to ever know, that's led me to like really think deeply about why is it that this phrase that can't be changed, and if you give it away, you're wrecked, and if you lose it, you're wrecked, and right? Why is it that that also gives control over like everything you own, right? Like when I'm telling you like, oh, put your eggs in different baskets. Okay, but like, why isn't it just inherently that like your private key, your secret can't send all your stuff out, right? Like you'd have to like grant it permission first and like one by one. I think that could be really, really interesting in terms of like, you know, just like default closed, default safe, default secure. It's like your sister, right? Like she didn't know, but she also had no reason to be sending these yet, right? Like, so if you imagine like at the base when she set up her wallet, like the wallet like didn't let her do anything. And then she would have to like, you know, level up and grant permission and then actually go and send. I think that could like help out a lot with some of these more complex scams and hacks that are draining like entire wallets. And then the last thing is like we have to figure out a way to have information spread that's not like Web 2 based, right? Discord and Twitter and Facebook and TikTok, like and YouTube, like they're Web 2, they're not Web 3. We need a way for that, like the trust signals and the trust metrics and the trust networks to be spawned like from Web 3 natively, so that we can like build them in, you know, with an understanding of the environment that we live in, and that environment is like scammers freaking everywhere. Like we need to do that instead of just like relying on these old systems.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about how your tune has kind of changed over the years. And it almost sounds to me like maybe it's shifted a little bit from being more on like the decentralization maxi side of things where, you know, everybody should just have full control over their wallet to maybe like 7 years later, having seen 7 years worth of scams and people getting wrecked and things like that now you're like, well, maybe it is the job of, you know, MetaMask and other wallets to protect their customers and to put more of these like protections in place for people. Would you say that's like pretty accurate?
Yeah, I think my biggest realization is that like back in the day, I figured like, oh, well, if we improve the UX and if we educate people, then they won't get phished. Or like a very small percentage will be phished. And those people, it'll be such a small amount. It'll be like, you know, lesson learned and move on, but it'll be fine. What I didn't sort of see and what's changed now is like the second that you improve that, the second that you get it so that like phishing doesn't work, then they just go do other tricky things that are even harder to detect that nobody's been taught about. And so it's like the more you educate about one thing, it's almost like you're setting future versions of your users up like tomorrow for like failure, because they're like, okay, as long as I never give my seed phrase out, I can't get wrecked. Okay, awesome, I've got this. And then like 2 years later, they're on a fake NFT mint site and it's like some crazy complex contract thing, right? They never gave their seed out, but they still end up in the same boat. And I think that's where it actually changed. It's not so much like, I still would love this to be done in a very like not centralized way, not taking people's consent away, not limiting people's like actual ability to do stuff. But I think that like, yeah, education can't solve it all. Better UX can't solve it all. We really need to think deeply about like the system at its core and the systems that were built up around it. It's silly because like for 7 years now, the number one way that people get wrecked is either like the URL looks like the legit URL, the Twitter looks like the legit Twitter, the Slack, Telegram, Discord username looks like the legit Slack, Telegram, Discord, right? Like, how is this a thing? Let's do it better. Like, let's make the L's and the I's not look the same. Can we fix that yet? You know, and I think that like if crypto people are creating those things, like, I'm sorry, do not ever make your capital I and your L look the same. It will wreck people all day long. But every single font that every single social media platform uses in Web2, every single one they look the same. It's crazy. It blows my mind.
Literally, yeah. Wow. I haven't even thought about it in such simplistic terms, but it does sound pretty silly when you put it that way. So people, when you're designing your new projects, your new NFT projects, don't use the capital I's and the L's and things that people can't tell apart, or like be like the underscores or just like an S at the end can really throw people off too. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts about wallet security and scams. I learned a lot. Hopefully people did too, and they'll know how to protect themselves better. I like to wrap up every episode with just 5 fun little questions. Some are related to crypto and some aren't. So if you're up for it, we'll just go through these questions really fast and see if you have any hot takes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so first one. You get to rebrand anything in Web3 and it's guaranteed to stick. What do you choose to rebrand?
Oh my God, I don't know, but I do know that I think we're past it, but there was this trend for a while where it would be like a word or a verb or whatever, and then it would end in like ETH. Like that was the worst. But then we're also starting to see it with Solana. So like all the Solana things start with SOL, and it's just killing me. Like, be original, people. Stop it. Stop doing this.
It kind of reminds me too of how every DAO is called like a DAO, like DAO, you know, like Taylor DAO or like something DAO. And it's like, you can just call it something, a word. It doesn't have to end in DAO.
It doesn't have to end in DAO. It doesn't have to. The ETH one was so bad because it was like, is it ETH or ETH? And then also it just sounded like you had a lisp. Like,
yeah. That's so true. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad that's over. And hopefully the SOL, I'm not really part of the Solana ecosystem, but hopefully that ends too, because that sounds like it could get out of hand. Second question. If you could wave a magic wand and any Web3 app, tool, or protocol would immediately exist, what would that be?
Oh God, this is going to be so far beyond your users, but like, I'm going to have to say, shout out to Dan for teaching me the ways of object capabilities and delegation and revocation. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's okay. You're sane and I'm not.
Okay, wait. So what is it? Is it
it's just like I'm going to figure out how to translate it into English and then I'll share it with everyone. But it's just a way of thinking about like interactions between like humans and computers and different things in the computers and systems. And like delegation is basically like giving someone authority or right over your stuff. So I could like delegate to you and say like, hey, you vote for me, or you hold my assets. You can like vote with them, but you can't send them, right? And then revocation is like, and I take it back. So like if you don't do your job well, I take it back, but it also applies to like any authority that you grant, right? Like, so yeah, like hopefully in the future, you won't have to migrate all your assets in order to like have a new, fresh, safely created seed phrase. Like you won't have to migrate everything. You won't have to take this effort. You can just like set up a new one in an offline environment or on your ledger and then like switch from this to that one, which is essentially like changing your password, except it's your private key.
Yeah, that would be super cool. And the revocation stuff and delegation makes a lot of sense. We already have that in the traditional world, like in our traditional legal system. So it doesn't seem that far-fetched to want that on chain too. Third question, if MetaMask or MyCrypto were a famous person or any character, real or made up from history or pop culture, who would it be?
Oh my God, what a question. I have no idea. Okay. Okay, do you have any ideas for this? There's no way.
I mean, I just like see the fox. And so I keep thinking like, Fox and Hound or like some fox.
Like
Some
Fantastic
famous
Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
That's a
But
good one. Yeah. I feel like yeah, it would have to be something where it's like this like amorphous blob that like can be whatever you want it to be or something. Like that's how I think about the wallet. Like the wallet, like I have like my definition of MetaMask as like a product that I build, but I also have like my MetaMask. My MetaMask is like that is mine. So I don't know, something that's like yeah, very like
Transformers or like
yeah.
Animorphs or something like that.
Yeah, or like one of those Pokemon that like follow you around and like they become like your little creature and they take on your personality.
Is that what happens with Pokemon? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Okay.
That's how I imagined it. Why else do they follow you around?
Because they're like your pets.
Yeah, but I mean, don't. Okay, well, I'm just gonna say your pets also take on your personality.
Oh, that's concerning because my dog does weird shit. Okay, next question. If money were no issue, so like if you knew that you were financially set for the rest of your life, what would you be doing like for your job?
Apparently, exactly what I'm doing right now, which is insane to think about. Yeah. I do think about sometimes like taking a break and like not doing anything, mostly because there's nothing else that I would rather be doing. And so I kind of just want to like see how long it'll take before I get bored and then like maybe like have like a like free space in my brain to like come up with new ideas or like be open to new ideas. But yeah, I mean I don't need to work at this point and yet still here, still trying my best to build the wallets.
True hero, our hero.
Don't ask me to like question myself too deeply on like this.
Okay, and the last question, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Honestly, like anywhere, like if it was just like not even a thing to like travel or move or like live, like I would live everywhere. I love new experiences, like different cultures. So like I'm in Los Angeles right now. I love it. My family's here, my friends are here, like it's great. But love New York as well. Love Sydney and Australia. Like that's in my opinion, best of both worlds in terms of like beaches, city, like people, nightlife. But it's Australia, and that is a long flight away. So yeah, I guess it depends on the question, but yeah, I like new experiences.
If you could teleport, then you would live in a new place every month.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Until I like I don't know traumatize my daughter because I'm sure that would too.
There's like,
but I would.
There's like world schooling or whatever they call it now. There's ways to get around
right?
it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think she'd enjoy it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Taylor, for your time. Before you go, just tell people where they can find you if they want to follow you. And feel free to plug away at anything MetaMask. I'm sure everybody already has a MetaMask that's listening, but feel free to plug away at anything you'd like.
Yeah, so best place to get a hold of me is like just at me on Twitter. My personal username is Tayvano, which is Tayvano, and then there's an underscore at the end of it because someone has the original one. And if you have questions about MetaMask, if you want to like tell us that we suck, if you want to like have some crazy idea, if you want to know what like open jobs we have or what's in the works, like ping me anytime on Twitter. I would definitely recommend like pinging me personally over the like primary MetaMask account because you'll get like flooded with spam bots. It's absolutely crazy. And then the other thing, if there's any like developers or like crazy smart people, big brains listening right now, MetaMask Snaps, you can Google it. we just like launched the new like website that explains exactly what MetaMask Snaps is. It basically like gives developers more deeper abilities to customize like the MetaMask experience for their end users. It's in beta right now, and like if you are a big brain, please go figure out what you want it to do and help us prioritize like what's in the pipeline for that. Hopefully that's it. I'm sure I forgot stuff, but like, yeah, find me on Twitter. I'm always around.
Okay, wait, I do have one last question. Can you guys do something about the MetaMask bots on Twitter?
Okay. So we just created a new Twitter account because we're like, let's have like a legit Twitter account that's not the like at MetaMask account. And then Twitter just banned it.
Oh no.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks, Twitter. Like you can't destroy the bots, but like the legit us account. So that master plan went out the window. We've been like, honestly, we've been telling them forever. I don't know if they aren't trying or if like the bots keep evolving, but it is. I think we just need the price to like go down more, and then the like if people stop falling for the bots will go away.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know. It's crazy though. How do you ban us? And then like in the conversation about our legit account being banned, there's like 50 bots. It's absurd.
I know. You can't even type MetaMask on Twitter anymore. You have to like make it weird with all the like asterisks and weird things. But glad to hear you guys are working on it, and hopefully there's a solution one day. Thank you so much, Taylor. Everybody go follow Taylor on Twitter at Tavano_, and ask her about all your MetaMask questions and devs. Hit her up and she'll show you cool ways that you can build for your community. Thanks again, Taylor, and thank you everybody for tuning in. We will be back again next week with a new episode of Rehash.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Rehash, a Web3 podcast. The guest from this episode, Taylor Monahan, was nominated by Tim and voted onto the podcast by Tim and other anonymous DAO members. Some of the questions you heard were also submitted by Tim. Rehash is hosted by Diana Chen, produced and edited by Ellie Dots and Tyler Internet, sponsored by Lens, Avenue, and Govern, and as always, supported by Rehash DAO. To stay up to date on all things Rehash, you can follow us on Twitter at RehashWeb3, on Lens at rehash.lens, and join our Discord to get involved.